Prof-It is brought to you by StopToShop.com, your ultimate source for Pokemon singles, tins, boxes, and cards from a variety of other games too. Type in the coupon code PROFIT in caps with a dash, and you'll sweeten the deal with a 10% discount on your full order. If you're looking for cards, make the stop at Stop to Shop.
Hey Prof-It fans, and welcome to today's episode. I don't have a fancy intro video for you guys or anything like that, but what I do have is the new Prof-It theme song. Well, it's not exactly new. It's just a re-recording of the old theme song, but it's been professionally mixed and mastered at Colin Peterick's studio. So, for those of you guys who are missing the theme song, I hope you like it, and I'm sorry for you guys who didn't like it in the first place. But I hope you guys check it out, and you can definitely tell that it's a lot better than the old one. I don't have an intro video for that yet, but I promise when I do have one, it'll be a lot better than 2 spinning pictures of my head over a bunch of backwards Pokemon cards. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and enjoy the music. Check it out.
You're Reggie Rocket with the nonsense and my hopes poke projects. You won't stop till you're bob to the top with all the hobbits. Hip with the metagame train, the reigning top kid's at the top of his game, and you can't hit my top list. You want the best tricks? I suggest you Prof-It. You want a mess Brit? I suggest you drop it. Once we started rolling, you know you can't stop it. Let's go and get some lessons from j-wittz and Prof-It. Yeah.
Welcome to today's episode of Prof-It. While there were a few off-continent territorial and provincial championships going on at the moment, the 2011 State Championship Series in the United States is officially over. I had a great run at states this year, and a ton of you guys have been asking for a tournament report, so here it is. I played a lot of games between both states, 22 in total, so I'm going to try and keep each game pretty brief. First was Illinois, where I brought Sableye with Blaziken and Honchkrow, very similar to the list that I ran at the end of City Championships. The only matchup I really feared was Gyarados, and I assumed that it would be played much less with the threat of Gengar Prime now present. Since I have a lot of talking to do, I'm just going to get straight to the games. Game 1 was against Quinn Downs, running the same deck as me, but with 3 Crobat Gs, along with some other strange techs. I'm able to start Sableye and get double heads with initiative, and that's all that really needs to be said about how the rest of the game went. His great hand turned terrible, and it took about 4 prizes straight before he conceded. 1-0. Game 2 was against Adam Keebler with Gyarados. Adam's one of the first players I ever played competitively with in my first league, but I don't think we've ever played a game in a tournament before. I start with Sableye and use Judge to get the Magikarps and resources out of his hand, but I find that my second Judge is prized, so I won't be able to slow him down for long. Early game, I try and use Luring Flame to trap his Regice active and go up in prizes, but he's able to top deck the Warp Energy that he needs to get Gyarados out and start hitting big. The next turn, he's able to top deck the Expert Belt that he needs to one-shot every Pokemon in my deck, and it's all over from there. I only take about 2 prizes, and I'm 1-1. Game 3 was against a Pokedad with Dalgachomp. He spends his resources building up a Dalga GX with special metals, but after I one-shot his Dalga with Blaziken FB level X, his setup falls apart. He begins missing energy drops, and my Garchomp CX is able to sweep for the rest of the game. 2-1. Game 4 was against Steve Ballin, a Vilegar player who had a great run over City Championships this year. I'm able to take my first 2 prizes with Sableye's Overconfident on Gastly and a Spiritomb, and he's struggling to set up. I set him even farther back using Blaziken FB's Luring Flame to bring up his Vileplume, and I then knock out Vileplume with Uxie level X. I'm up about 3 to 4 prizes before he gets his first Gengar out, and I find out that it's a Gengar Prime. I realize that he's running the trainer-locking Gengar Prime list, like the one from Europe, but his setup is so slow that he's unable to get much going. I set up a Honchkrow and riot the rest of my prizes to pick up the game and move to 3-1. Game 5 is against a newer player running a rogue deck, Exeggutor with Scizor. The deck's aim was to drop its hand to 0 and then use Psychic Strategy with the Exeggutor to give you nothing to work with while he tanks a Scizor Prime for the game. Unfortunately, he starts terribly and gets several tails and Super Scoop Up to try and pick up his Uxie to set up for a new hand. By the time he gets Exeggutor out, I have a pretty established field, and I start taking several prizes with Garchomp C level X. By the time he gets Scizor out, I have the Blaziken FBX to counter, and I'm moving to 4-1. Game 6 is against Matt Alvis, a great player and my old friend from Illinois with Gyarados. He's able to draw through most of his entire deck turn 1 with Unknown R's, Pokedrawers, Pokedex, and Junk Arm, but he's unable to hit the broken time space that he needs, and I use this to my advantage. This time, Luring Flame on the Regi sticks, and I'm able to power spray all of his attempts to get set up past here. After sniping about 4 times with Garchomp CX before he can even get a Gyarados out, time is called, and Matt concedes, knowing that he can't catch up. 5-1. Game 7 was against World Champ Jason Klasinski with Vilegar and a Blissey Tech for healing. I get out a fast Honchkrow, and I'm able to riot through 3 of his Pokemon in a row, while luckily dodging 2 Feigning Spell flips. I eventually go up 5-1 in prizes, but I run out of resources and get stuck once he gets the Trainer Lock with Vileplume. In the end, the prizes end up getting tied up, and I set up for 5 with Uxie, looking to get Garchomp CX for the game. I miss it, but later find out that it was just the next card on top of my deck. So, by just 1 card, I lose to World Champ Jason, moving to 5-2. I make top cut, but I'm sad to find out that I'll be paired against my friend Carver with Vilegar. We've tested this matchup a lot, and I know it's pretty even, so I resolve to do my best no matter what I'm given. He takes an early lead on me game 1, but he isn't able to get the Trainer Lock going, and this helps me set up a Garchomp CX and snipe several times with it. My memory's a little fuzzy here, but I think I took all 6 of my prizes with Garchomp, picking off weaker Pokemon on the bench, while limiting his Gengar's potential by getting rid of all the trainers in my hand. Game 2 I take the early lead with Garchomp again, and he still has no Trainer Lock with Vileplume, but he's able to disrupt me by playing several copies of Looker's Investigation. We play a close game, but he's up by 1 prize after time is called and the 3 turns are over, and it's on to a 1 prize sudden death for Game 3. In Game 3, I start Sableye to his Crobat G, and flip Double Tails with Initiative. I start to freak out because I know if he can get out the Azelf and the Psychic Energy to use Lockup, he'll secure the first prize for sure. He gets out his Azelf and Uxie with a Pokemon Collector that I could have gotten rid of with a Heads on Initiative, and he does set up for 5. I get very lucky and he whiffs for the Psychic, which gives me the time I need to retreat Sableye and set up a Garchomp. He tries to use Lookers on me again to stop the eventual Dragon Rush for the game, but I end up drawing into a Bebe and an energy needed to grab the sudden death prize with Garchomp CX. It's a shame that we had to play a sudden death game instead of a legitimate game, but that's Pokemon sometimes. 6-2 and on to top 8. I'm paired with Quindowns again, and I prepare for some SP Mirror. Game 1, he absolutely destroys my setup with an early Garchomp and 3 double colorless energy in his hand before I can set anything up. I concede early and move on to Game 2. Game 2, I'm able to donk his Garchomp C with my Garchomp C, and just after 5 or so minutes, we're already moving to Game 3. In Game 3, he whiffs on energy almost the entire game, and I'm able to use Blaziken FB's Vapor Kick to run through 4 prizes before he decides to concede. After some pretty poor games, I'm moving on to Top 4. Top 4 is once again against a Sableye mirror against a Green Bay player named Austin. Game 1 I start Unknown Q and he starts Sableye to knock me out with Overconfident before I even get to draw a card. After about 30 seconds, we're on to Game 2. Game 2, I really luck out. We both set up, and I have a small hand of about 2 cards, but one of them's a Pokemon Collector, so I'm pretty set. He gets a double Heads on Initiative to drop both of them to the bottom of my deck, giving me a 0-card hand. I top deck what is probably the best card for the situation, an Uxie, and I'm able to set up for a new hand of 7 and take over with Garchomp for the game. In Game 3, I just set up faster than him, and I'm able to sweep with Garchomp and then finish the game with Honchkrow. He revealed an interesting tech of Fan Rotom in his deck to hit for both colorless and lightning damage, but it wasn't enough to bring him back into the game. I move on to 8-2, and it's off to the finals match against national champion Kyle, aka Puka. I start Game 1 by disrupting him early on, with him draw passing as I take early Garchomp prizes. I draw 4 prizes to his none, while he uses Chat.MD to desperately get a new hand, and after he plays Snowpoint Temple, he mounts a huge comeback. He walls with Driftplim FB, now with 140 HP, and he takes prizes while healing any damage that I do. I can't take any prizes with Snowpoint Temple in play, and I only manage to take 1 more prize as he destroys my field in a long drawn-out game that lasted over 50 minutes. Because of the new rules and time, I'm going to have to take 4 prizes in Game 2 for the game to count, and with about 8 minutes left, and him promoting Dalga-G and using Deafen to start the game, I know it can't happen. I play it out, but it's no use. Kyle wasn't the national champ for nothing, and he secures his victory on time. 8-3 to take 2nd place. Not bad at all. I'm a little bummed that Pokemon hasn't shipped the prize medals to the United States yet, but I get a great boost to my rating, and I leave happy with my performance. In between tournaments, I make the decision to swap out my Blaziken line for a Luxray GL Level X line to better deal with Gyarados, making my deck the one that my brother used all city championships, Lox Chomp. Once again, let's just get straight to the games. Game 1 I played against Rich, a local league leader with Lost Gar and Mew Prime. Unfortunately, he was only able to get about 2 Pokemon out all game, and I got 2 quick knockouts to win before he could hit his first supporter, 1-0. Game 2 I played against a player running a grass deck with Beedrill, Shaman, and Tangrowth. He still ran Uxies and a strong supporter line, but his deck was just noticeably weaker than a metagame deck, and I was able to take all 6 prizes with Honchkro's Riot to seal the game, 2-0. Game 3 was against a new player named David with Lost Gar. He talked about how he'd just been in the game for a few months, and it was his first tournament, and that he watched Prof-It to help him get into the game. I'm able to take early prizes with Luxray, but my biggest counter to Lost Gar gets thrown into the Lost Zone after he uses Spooky Whirlpool with Spiritomb to put my Honchkrow right into my hand, which he immediately throws into the Lost Zone. This makes my knockouts take much more time to complete, and I'm constantly filling my hand with Pokemon for him to throw in the Lost Zone. He also gets 2 into the Lost Zone by using Palkia GX's power, but also at the expense of an easy prize with Luxray GL Level X's Flash Impact. It was a much closer game than I expected, but in the end I'm able to take 6 prizes while having 5 of my Pokemon sent into the Lost Zone. Great game, and I move to 3-0. Game 4, I'm up against Puka again, and I'm ready for my revenge. Once again, he starts slower with the need to use Chatot to set up, and I take an early lead with Luxray GL Level X and Garchomp. He eventually gets out Dalga GX with 2 special medals, 4 total energy, and an expert belt, and he starts tearing up my field with it. My best play in this game was using the surprise attack of Murkrow's Switcheroo to move his expert belt to an Azelf on the bench, making Dalga considerably weaker and forcing him to change his strategy. By the end, it becomes a race of exchanged prizes between my Garchomp and his Drifblim, and while I make a few misplays in the last few turns, I'm able to Dragon Rush for the final knockout and move to 4-0. Game 5 I played against Clifford with Scizor Prime. This game, I really missed having Blaziken, but things ended up going well for me right away. I was able to 2-shot his Scizor with my Luxray, and then Power Spray his setup with Uxie for 7 cards. With a 0-card hand and nothing to work with, he couldn't do much to stop me from taking 1 prize a turn for the rest of the game. 5-0. Game 6 I played against a player from Missouri with Blaziken, Luxray, Garchomp. He gets an early lead by using Roserade's Poison Bind on my Sableye to lock me in place and take the first 2 prizes, but this also sets me into Twins and allows me to grab my 2 double colorless energies to come back with Garchomp and Dragonite FB. It becomes your usual prize exchange from here, but because I have all the double colorless energy I need, I'm able to set up a new attacker every turn, and eventually take the lead in the exchange for the game. 6-0. Game 7 was against Tyson with Dalgachomp. Like Puka the week before, he drops an early Snow Point Temple to slow the game down, and he builds up a big Dalga. Luckily, I set up my Honchkrow and several special darks, and I'm able to one-shot his Dalga GX with a Giant Riot for 170 damage. This lets me take a small lead in the beginning of what's a slow game, and time is called when we each have taken 3 prizes. I'm able to use Uxie Level X's Zen Blade to KO his Toxicroak G on the final turn of time, and I complete Swiss with a perfect record of 7-0. Moving to Top Cut, I find that my brother was able to come back from 1-2 all the way to 5-2 to make Top Cut, along with my friend Carver. I'm paired up against the tournament organizer's son Mike, and I'm ready for a great game. Game 1 goes very similarly to my game in round 6. He takes the first 2 prizes by locking my Sableye with Roserade GL, and I'm able to activate my Twins and start a rampage that proves to be too much for him to deal with in the end. Game 2 I get a lucky double heads of Cyrus's Initiative to drop 2 Cyrus's Conspiracy from his hand, and I'm able to establish a setup of Garchomp and Dragonite that he doesn't have the resources to counter completely by the end of the game. I'm able to take my top 16 match, and I move to top 8 at 8-0. In top 8 I play a different player from Missouri, also playing Blaziken, Luxray, Garchomp. Game 1, I get a double heads of Cyrus's Initiative to drop him to a terrible hand, and he doesn't hit a supporter for the next 3 or 4 turns. I take a prize each turn, and he concedes to move to Game 2. Game 2 went much like my round 6 game, and Game 1 in top 16. He gets the early lead with Roserade GL, then I use Twins to set up and take control. He fought hard through the game, taking many prizes that I didn't expect at Luxray GL, but I'm able to keep the stream of Dragon Rushes throughout the game, and I win by a nose. I'm moving to top 4, and extend my undefeated streak to 9-0. Top 4 sets up another revenge match for me against Emmanuel Divins, the player that beat me in top 128 of Nationals last year. Today, he's playing Magnezone with Regirock. a strong rogue deck that did well at the European Cup. I have no testing against the deck, and I wish for the best. Game 1, I start Sableye to his Magnemite, and luckily top deck the special Dark Energy that I need to get the turn 1 win with Overconfident. I luck out, and we move to Game 2. In Game 2, I take an early lead with Overconfident on his Magnemite and Spiritomb, and then once again employ Murkrow to win me this game. To prevent the huge power in Magnezone Prime's Lost Bird, I move his Expert Belt on 2 separate occasions to benched Pokemon, meaning that the snipes I take with Garchomp CX are worth 2 prizes each. I get my 4 prizes with Garchomp and Luxray GL Level X, and I move to the championship game once again at 10-0. This time, it's time for a player to get revenge on me. My opponent is none other than my brother, also playing Lockchomp. We both know that the Sableye mirror can be really stupid, so it's either player's game based on the luck of the draw. Game 1, he uses Judge with Sableye, and I draw 3 Pokemon and 2 SP tools. I don't hit a supporter for 2 turns and he's fully set up, so I scoop. I check my deck and see that I wasn't going to hit a supporter for about 8 more turns, so there was no way I was winning that one. Game 2, he starts Sableye and Judges again, but gives me the Pokemon Collector that I need to Flash Bite and then Overconfident his Sableye with Special Dark Energy for the dog. Once again, after around 5 minutes, we're moving to Game 3. In Game 3, I start Sableye and I have a terrible hand, so I use Judge. I don't draw that well, but he draws amazing and sets up. On my turn, I'm able to set up a little bit and I use Cyrus's Initiative in desperation to drop the Premier Ball from his hand and dropping his access to Garchomp CX. Unfortunately, he top decks the Cyrus's Conspiracy that he needs to get everything together, and I just don't have a big enough setup to deal with his Dragon Rushes. My luck finally runs dry, and my brother takes his revenge to win the tournament. 10-1. Even though I got 2 second places, I'm still very happy with my performance this year. I won a combined 18 wins and 4 losses, and my rating jumped high enough for me to be within the top 15 of Masters in the world. This year, the top 40 Masters from North America will earn a ratings invite by the end of Nationals, so if I keep up a strong performance, I should get my invite no sweat this year. I'm excited to get coverage of Worlds for the first time for Prof-It, and I promise it'll be awesome. Thanks for watching my report, and have a great week. In the meantime, it's 1 month to Regionals, and the format is exactly the same as the one that we planned for States, so I'll use my next episode to analyze which decks are most successful for State Championship, and to help you guys prepare for Regionals as well as you can. Peace!